Here's something most financial content won't say directly. If you're in your 60s with little or nothing saved for retirement, the danger isn't that you started too late. The danger is believing the story that it's already too late, because that belief, quiet and convincing as it feels, is exactly what stops women from doing the one or two things that could genuinely change where they land. And today I want to walk you through what that actually looks like. Not a list of tips, not encouragement dressed up as a plan. The real picture of where the leverage is, and where women in this exact situation most often look in the wrong direction. Let's start with something that almost nobody says out loud. The women who recover from a late financial start are not the ones who found some secret investment trick. They're not the ones who suddenly started earning more. More often than not, they're the ones who got brutally honest about one number, and then made one structural change based on that number. Not 12 changes, one. The reason most people don't do that is because 12 changes feel more serious, more like trying. But 12 changes spread across your life create 12 small frictions, and most of them quietly disappear within 60 days. One structural change, the right one, is the thing that actually moves the needle. We'll come back to what that looks like. But first, let's talk about why you're here. If you're a woman in your 60s with limited savings, there's a very good chance your financial story didn't look like neglect from the inside. It looked like life. It looked like raising children on one income, or two incomes that never quite stretched far enough. It looked like years out of the workforce for caregiving, for children, or later, for a parent, or for a husband whose health changed everything. It looked like a divorce that arrived with paperwork and very little financial preparation. It looked like decades of trusting someone else to handle the money, and then one day realizing that trust had a price you didn't know you were paying. None of that is a personal failure. But here is what matters right now. What got you here is not what decides where you end up. What decides where you end up is what you do with the time you actually have. And if you are 60 and in reasonable health, you likely have more of that time than you think. This is where people tend to reach for the comfortable idea. It's never too late, and stop there. But that phrase is only useful if it's followed by something specific. So let's be specific. If you are 60 today, there is a reasonable chance you will live into your mid-80s. Some of you will reach 90. That means you may have 20 to 30 years ahead of you. 20 to 30 years is not a sprint to repair damage. 20 to 30 years is enough time to build something real if you understand where the real leverage is. And most women in this situation are looking in the wrong place. They're focused on how much they can save, which is understandable. But savings rate is only one variable. The one that tends to matter more, especially for women who are not high earners, is spending structure. Not how much comes in, how much stays. Here's why that distinction matters more than it sounds. There is a version of retirement planning that assumes you need to accumulate a large lump sum, some number that feels impossibly large from where you're standing. And when that number feels out of reach, the natural response is to feel like the game is already over. But that lump sum model isn't the only model. And for many women at 60, it isn't even the right model. What you actually need in retirement is a monthly income that covers your monthly life. That's it. Income against expenses every month. Which means the most powerful thing you can do right now is not find a way to save more, though that matters. It is to understand exactly what your monthly life actually costs, and then ask a harder question. Which parts of that cost are fixed, and which parts are structural choices that could be revisited? And this is where most women I speak with discover something uncomfortable. There is usually one expense, sometimes two, that is carrying a disproportionate weight. Housing is the most common one. For a woman living alone in a home that was sized for a family, the cost of maintaining that space, the mortgage or the taxes or the upkeep or simply the heating and cooling, can quietly consume resources that could be redirecting her financial situation entirely. This is not about selling your home. It's about seeing it clearly. Because for many women, the home they live in is both their largest asset and their largest monthly drain. Knowing which one it is, asset or drain or both, changes what options you actually have. And this is the turn I want you to sit with for a moment. Because here is where the situation often looks different than it feels. At 60, with limited savings, the fear is usually framed as, I don't have enough. But the more precise and more solvable problem is often, my current cost of living requires more retirement income than I will realistically have. Those two problems feel similar. They are not the same problem, and they do not have the same solution. If the problem is not enough savings, the answer is save more, invest wisely, work longer. And those things matter, and we'll address them. But if the problem is that your monthly cost of living is structurally misaligned with your future income, then saving more at the margins while keeping the structure unchanged doesn't solve it. It just delays the reckoning. What solves it is restructuring. One real, meaningful restructuring of your spending landscape, usually around housing or debt or both, that closes the gap between what you'll have coming in and what your life costs to run. For some women, that looks like downsizing. For some, it looks like relocating. For some, it looks like a serious conversation about combining households with an adult child, a sibling, a close friend, not out of defeat, but out of strategy. For some, it means finally addressing debt that has been quietly compounding in the background for years. These are not comfortable conversations, but they are the ones that actually change the outcome. Now, alongside that structural work, there are a few other levers that deserve your attention. If you are still working, keep working. Not because you failed to retire on time, but because every additional year of income between now and when you claim Social Security is a year that benefit can grow. This matters more than most women realize. Social Security benefits don't just wait for you while you delay. They increase. Each year you delay claiming past your full retirement age, your monthly benefit grows. For many women, claiming too early because retirement feels urgent is one of the most expensive decisions they make. If you are in reasonable health and can continue earning income, the discipline of waiting, even 2 or 3 more years, can mean hundreds of additional dollars every single month for the rest of your life. That is not a small thing when you may live 30 more years. There is also the question of the accounts you already have, IRAs, old 401ks, savings you may have dismissed as too small to matter. If you are 50 or older, the IRS allows you to contribute more than younger workers to retirement accounts. Catch-up contributions exist specifically for this season of life. Understand what you qualify for and use them fully. And if you own a home and are at least 62, there is a financial tool that deserves a clear-eyed look, not as a last resort, but as a legitimate option. A federally insured reverse mortgage, structured carefully, can eliminate a monthly mortgage payment or create a line of credit that sits as a financial buffer. The rules around these products have changed considerably, and the fear and stigma around them is often based on outdated information. This is worth understanding, not avoiding. None of these are magic. None of them work in isolation. But together, a restructured cost of living, a delayed Social Security claim, maximized contributions, and potentially a smarter relationship with your home equity. They form a real plan, not a wish, a plan with actual mechanics. One more thing before we close. The hardest part of being in this position is not the math. The hardest part is the weight of feeling like you should have done something differently, and now it's too late to matter. That feeling is one of the most expensive things you can carry right now, because it keeps you from acting. The truth is quieter than that. You are not behind because you were careless. You are here because life asked a great deal of you, often without asking permission. And you are still here, still capable of clarity, still capable of decisions that compound over 20 or 30 years, still capable of protecting your own future. The question is not whether you started late. The question is whether you're willing to start now, clearly, honestly, with your eyes open to what actually needs to change. That willingness is worth more than any single financial product or strategy. It is, in fact, where every recovery begins.